and not just kill Israelis. They wanted to kill a lot of Israelis.
Palestinian Arabs are only killed when they are attacking Israel.
They want all of Israel as one Palestinian state.
This is the Israel Guys.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of fake news, you should connect to the true and authentic stories of Israel. Guys, I don't know about you, but I know about me. I am completely fed up with a lot of fake news. And you know, the bad news, the really bad news is that fake machine that just perpetrates negativity and anti-Israel propaganda has actually come all the way in and has set up base even in Israel. Now that's bad. We're going to talk about some leftist news that's right here.
Yeah, when a lot of people probably think if you see it coming from Israel, then it must be true.
Right.
Fortunately, there's a whole lot more to the story, a lot more that Israel's dealing with. We're going to get into that. Make sure you subscribe and you want to hit the notification bell. It's a new year.
That's right.
2022. Happy to be with y'all. Guys, we more than quadrupled in size last year, and we are ready to grow even more this year. New content, new shows, new programs. And better than ever before.
That's
exponential growth. Can't do it without your help, so please subscribe and hit notifications and tell a friend if you want to help us grow. We do have a quick survey. It literally probably takes about 60 seconds to do. Link in the description below. We want to know exactly what you guys want to see from us, and we want to know how we can make the biggest impact in 2022. So click the link, description below, fill out the survey. You'll help us out a whole lot by letting us know what kind of content you want to see in 2022. Thanks so much for helping us out there. Josh, Haaretz is an Israeli publication.
Yeah.
It means the land. And unfortunately, it's more known for its liberalness than its conservativeness, I guess. Right. Which, you know, I'm not saying either side is right or wrong, but
here in Israel, we have freedom of speech. People can say whatever they want. The bad news, Luke, is when the freedom of speech goes into where it's free just to make up things and lie about things.
Right.
And that's what we're going to call out today.
So there's a senior Israeli journalist at Haaretz by the name of Gideon Levy, and he has a pretty good reputation of being anti-Israel.
Nice way to
which
put
is
that.
interesting.
I would have said a pretty
because
bad
he's
reputation.
a Jewish Israeli man, journalist, but he's very pro-Palestinian and very anti-Israel in a lot of ways. I say that a little bit, carefully, because he would definitely not say he's anti-Israel, but he's very, I guess, anti-Zionist. And writes a lot of things that are pro-Palestinian, a lot of things that are spun with a negative or a narrative, or really just a propaganda narrative. And this week came out with an article that is totally anti-Israel and actually says some things that are just not true, or they have like just enough truth in them to not make people question it, but so full of falsehoods that we have to call it out.
Right. And Luke, this is what we're going to call out. He says in his quote, the headline was, Israel killed 319 Palestinians in 2021. How is Mahmoud Abbas the terrorist? That's his headline.
Yeah.
And he's bringing this up in conjunction with the Abbas, president of the Palestinian Authority, meets with the defense minister,
right,
Gantz.
which we covered in the last couple weeks.
So he's saying, we should quote him here. It's 2022, and there are those on Israel's right who still object to speaking with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He's a terrorist, they say. It's 2022, and there are still people voicing this groundless and ridiculous claim with utter seriousness. There's no point in correcting them. Quote.
So he's saying that and basically he goes on to say that Benny Gantz, who's Israel's defense minister and who has met with Mahmoud Abbas twice now in the last few months, has more blood on his hands than Mahmoud Abbas does. Benny Gantz is Israel's defense minister. He was also a top general in the IDF. He's more of a terrorist than Mahmoud Abbas is, who is an actual terrorist. And if you don't believe that, go back and watch our show from a couple weeks ago. We did an extensive, in-depth analysis of who Mahmoud Abbas is and why he should be in prison for life.
Luke, I want to clarify one thing here, because I'm sorry to the Israeli journalist, but that's just, if you want to make people believe that there's Israelis just going out and killing Palestinians, and Israeli citizens went out and killed 319 Palestinians, well, I'm sorry, but that's what people are going to take from your news article, Levy. That's just, sorry, that is false. That is nowhere close to being true. 319 And Luke, we actually should quote so people have the context here. His quote on down. He says that these people that were killed were farmers and they were people that weren't harming anybody.
Right.
He not only blows over the fact that these are terrorists, he actually lies multiple times saying, no, they're not. They were just farmers. People.
Yeah, I want to read this quote, because later on in his article, he says, quote, "Over the past year, Israel killed 319 Palestinians. It was a rather quiet year with no real war and with relatively few terrorist attacks. Some 319 Palestinians were killed, almost all of them for no reason. Almost all of their deaths unwarranted, and nearly all of them were unarmed. Few of them endangered anyone. They were for the most part protesters and farmers, and few of them actually tried to perpetrate terrorist attacks."
Okay, so what I want to with this, so now that we have that backdrop, so false. Most of these were killed as terrorists coming against Israel and trying to kill Israelis, and not just kill Israelis. They wanted to kill a lot of Israelis. We talk about people behind rockets, shooting rockets. For the most part, this is who was killed. That number he quotes, the people, according to Levy, the 319 people here that weren't doing anything bad. So according to Levy, doing nothing bad is sitting in Gaza, because this is the most of the number of people that died were behind rockets shooting them into Israel. Actually at his home. Now that takes a lot of nerve to stand up for the guy that's actually shooting rockets at your home. Levy lives, I'm sure, down on the coast somewhere. That's a lot of nerve to just go ahead.
So just to clarify, yes, 319 Palestinian Arabs killed during 2021. Majority of them we know were terrorists. And yes, there was some civilians killed. Minority, but that's what happens in war. And that's what leads me to the second point, is that he actually says it was a rather quiet year with no real war and with relatively few terrorist attacks. We're going to address both of those things. I guess Hamas shooting 4,500 rockets at Israel during an 11-day full-out conflict in May 2021 doesn't count as war.
No real war.
I did a quick search, and I found on the UN website 256 Gazans were killed during the 11-day war with Gaza back in May. 256. That means that we're looking at almost 3/4 of the number that Gideon Levy is putting out were Gazans that were killed during the 11-day conflict with Israel. Terrorists, mostly terrorists, some civilians that were caught in the crossfire, and civilians that were killed by Hamas's own rockets, which we documented back in the summer. Okay, go back and watch it. That's not speculation. That's fact. That's statistics. Josh, beyond the war, and because Gideon Levy also says there were relatively few terrorist attacks. Tell us the actual numbers.
Well, there's actually 11,166 terrorist attacks, and I'm sorry that a senior Israeli journalist doesn't have the actual news for you guys. That to me is embarrassing, really embarrassing. And the fact that he would take a leftist ideology from the enemy and perpetrate that to the world as a big news network is outlandish. You have 11,166 attacks, and I'm not talking about Israelis protesting against an Arab movement and, like they're going to try to paint. No, there was never 11,166 Israeli citizens attacking Arabs anywhere. No, they have an IDF. They have an Israeli Defense Force that is there to protect Israeli civilians, and they do that. This is the attacks. We talked about this. Go back and watch it again. But there's 5,532 stone throwings, 1,022 bomb attacks, 61 shootings with guns, and 18 stabbing attacks. 6,633 of these attacks were just here solely in Judea and Samaria, Luke. In Gaza, we had 5,000 plus rockets shooting out of Gaza, 31 rockets from Lebanon. Syria were 2 rockets. That totals, so a quiet year. 2021, a quiet year. 11,166 attacks against Israel.
I want to say something, too, because there's 2 levels going on here. Because one, we're actually comparing this, we're comparing attack for attack, and we're doing that to show you the unequalness, right? But there's another level to this, because it shouldn't actually be an equal comparison, because Palestinian Arabs are only killed when they are attacking Israel. okay? Whether it's terrorists that are killed because they're attacking Israel,
Right.
or it's civilians that are killed because they're caught in the crossfire, as happens in any war in any part of the world, in any of history, right? There's that. Whereas Jews are only killed when Palestinian terrorists or Palestinians that are incited to violence are directly attacking them and killing them. So there's really actually, like, you cannot put them on both sides and compare them equally.
Yeah.
Because it's just not. There's
And
no
if you were to
comparison
even
whatsoever.
throw them beside each other and try to compare, there's 99.9% of the Jewish population that says that's evil and that a Jew should never attack, an Israeli civilian should never attack an Arab. They will be dealt with the fullness of the law if that ever happened. And on the Arab side, you have 99.9% of the Arabs that actually condone the attack.
And the government, it's condoned by the government, and they're actually paid
And
by
Luke,
their
that's what I
government.
want to get into, because Levy here, and he quotes when he starts off the article, he quotes like the right. I think he's talking to me and you here. He's like, those idiots, they think that he's a terrorist. Well, actually, when he quotes that Mahmoud Abbas is a terrorist, so-called terrorist, they got to get to the 2022 now. Abbas is no terrorist. Wait, are you just going to just cover over all of history? Like, okay, we're 2022 now. We can forget the last 100 years.
Right.
Whoa. Let's just go back and look at who actually Mahmoud Abbas was for a second. And you can go back and listen to one of the shows. We did extensive research on Mahmoud Abbas. And to say that he's not a terrorist is absolutely idiotic.
Yeah.
That's idiotic. Like, that's ignoring the truth. Mahmoud Abbas, the mastermind behind the Munich massacre. Okay? That's fact. We're not just making things up. And today, Mahmoud Abbas is paying salaries to terrorists. Is that enough for you, Levy? I mean, really.
And
The world has
again,
to know
we
that.
went through his entire history. Go back and watch it. But just recently, Mahmoud Abbas held a 57th anniversary, celebrating the 57th anniversary of the founding of Fatah. Yeah. Fatah is in control of the Palestinian Authority. Hamas is in control of Gaza, right? So Fatah is basically another terrorist organization that's controlling the Palestinian Authority government. In Abbas's speech at this 57th anniversary, he said, quote, "Hideous policies of ethnic cleansing and organized terrorism. Quote, the anniversary of the launch of our revolution comes under extremely critical and difficult circumstances due to the continuation of the heinous Israeli occupation, the escalation of its repressive practices and persecution of our people, the theft of our land and natural resources, the stifling of our economy, the withholding of our tax funds, and racial discrimination." This is the man that's twice met with Israel's defense minister. Most recently,
Luke,
went across the Green Line and sat in Benny Gantz's home.
these quotes that you just quoted were just a few days after he's with Benny Gantz, the defense minister of Israel.
And
in his
after he's
home.
accepting hundreds of millions of shekels of dollars from shekels from Israel.
You know why he makes these comments? Because he got a lot of backlash for meeting the Israeli defense minister, and he has to go home and he has to strengthen and re-energize the Arab regime that wants to kill Israel. Luke, he not only said those things, he praised the terrorists held in Israeli jails. He said, quote, he praised their sacrifices and patience. Okay, that's pretty far out there. That's a terrorist activity there. If you're basically the terrorist if you're gonna praise them for their sacrifice and patience in your speech. This is
he calls them. He praises the quote heroes of the popular resistance, which
Yeah.
again we need to define popular resistance.
Yeah,
Because it's just a term for committing violent acts against
Terrorism.
Israeli Jews.
yeah. These are like lone wolf, they call them. Like these guys that are just they're not connected to anybody, but they're just going to go and commit a terrorist attack against Israelis.
Josh,
That's
can we
what he's
talk-
praising.
Can we talk about the history of Fatah and where they come from, when they were founded? Because it's really significant. Their first attack, and by the way, they were founded in 1959. Okay, hold that thought. You need to know. Very important. Their first attack against Israel was on January 1st, 1965. Okay?
Yeah.
1965. What is familiar about that date?
Well, it's actually 67 that's familiar, and which is a big deal because Israel wasn't even in Judea, Samaria, Golan Heights, East Jerusalem, Sinai, Gaza.
Right.
Those were all areas outside of Israel. This is pre-1967. This is what we're saying.
And so what it boils down to, and this is very important, if you don't remember anything else from today, remember this, okay? Every single piece of territory and real estate that the world talks about and tries to force Israel into creating a Palestinian state is all what they call pre-1967 borders, areas that Israel liberated in the 1967 war, okay? Fatah was founded in 1959. They committed their first attacks against Israel in 1965. The Palestine Liberation Organization was created in 1964.
What were they going to liberate, Luke?
It is an absolute myth that
Yeah.
the Palestinians want a Palestinian state in territories that are pre-1967, okay? They want, and the only thing they want is all of the Jews pushed into the sea so that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Luke, and it's bigger than that because they've actually technically had their own state in Judea and Samaria before, and it was called Jordan.
Right.
They were citizens of Jordan, and they lived in their Jordanian-controlled Judea and Samaria.
Which, by the way, if you talk to any of the locals that were around then, they hated it. They didn't get anything. They didn't have water. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have infrastructure, economy, nothing. Right. It was horrible. They were constantly persecuted by Jordanian soldiers. Horrible.
Right. Luke, and the fact is that the terrorist attack that took place in 1965, where was it at? Well, it was against Israel in Israel's pre-1967 borders, and it was against Israel's main water source. They were going to blow up the water source, causing potentially major damage to Israel. That was their attack, and that's what they were perpetrating in 1965. Yeah. And again, you cannot say this enough. World, wake up and listen to this. They want to push Israel into the sea. They've said it, and they're saying it even today. It's not a lie. I wish Levy could hear this. When they say it, they mean it.
They want
really
to push him
want
into the
to
sea.
push himself into the sea.
Exactly.
And we're 2022, and I would like to tell Levy that they haven't changed their mind. They still want to push him and all Israelis, completely wipe Israel off the map and create a Palestinian state, not just in pre-1967, on the other side of the 1967. They want all of Israel as one Palestinian state. That's fact. And this is very, it's sad, but this is the reality on the ground.
Josh, I want to end on a positive note because we have some good news from 2021. Two sets of statistics. That is Jews that visited the Temple Mount in 2021 and Israel's 2021 population growth statistics, okay? Real quickly, 35,000 Jews visited the Temple Mount in 2021, which is amazing and interesting because the Temple Mount was only open to Jews 20% of the time, okay? I say this is positive, but there's also a little bit of sad news involved because according to Be'adenu, which means in our hands, 70 Jews were also arrested or detained in 2021 for things like walking maybe off the route that they were supposed to, praying, and any other claims that the Islamic Walk, the Jordanian Walk, just decided that they wanted to make. 57 Jews were banned for different periods of time, and none of them ever got notified why they were banned from the Temple Mount. Okay, so unfortunately the fight continues, but the good news is that there are tens of thousands of Jews visiting, and also Christians, because we're up there, and we know other people that are up there. So the interest and the engagement with Jerusalem and the Temple Mount is increasing more and more, and the world is not going to be able to just ignore it, ignore the truth that the Jerusalem and the Temple Mount is such a holy spot, the holiest spot for the Jewish people. They're not going to be able to ignore that forever. Also, Israel's population growth statistics, very exciting. And also, I forgot to write it down, but Israel is almost about 9.5 million people. They're actually getting close to 10 million people,
That's
which
incredible.
is just incredible.
Right.
Because in 70 years, they've grown so much. 160,000 people were added to Israel's population, an increase of 1.7%, 83% natural growth, 17% due to migration and immigration. 184,000 babies were born, 25,000 people made Aliyah to Israel. So exciting. And I think, we're Christians, we're not Israelis, but we would always tell Jewish people, we have Jewish people watching, come back to Israel because this is your home. This is the only place where you can be safe. Yes, there's like stuff happening here, but this is the only place that is a Jewish nation. So as
homeland for the Jewish
American Christians that believe in supporting Israel, the strongest message we could ever tell an American Jew or a Jew living anywhere else is that Israel is your home, and we totally support you coming back to living in your home.
If you need help doing that, let us know. We want to get you back with everything we've got. Come back home to the land of Israel, settle, take possession of this land. I'm telling you, there's a fight for it, and
Israel needs you.
The nation of Israel needs you. Yeah. That's just a fact. They need the Jewish people of all over the world to come back and settle this land.
That's right.
That's actually what's going to bring peace, Luke. We didn't bring it up, but the IDF, their symbol, like it's got a sword with an olive branch around it.
Right.
It's like Yeah, Levy. He's forgetting
Gideon Levy, yeah.
Gideon Levy. He's forgetting the fact that Israel is a place of peace. It's a sword. They got to protect themselves, but it's wrapped in an olive branch.
Right.
Like that's the IDF, the nation of Israel, is this beacon of hope and light and peace, and it's going to bring that peace to the world. And it needs every Jewish person to be a part of it all over the world, to come back and shed that light, shine that light all over the world. That's what's got to happen.
That's right. Guys, we are so excited to start off 2022 with you. We only have plans to exponentially grow this year. Don't forget to download the Israel Guys app on your smartphone. Just go to your app store, search The Israel Guys. We want you to join our community, uncensored, unfiltered news and biblical content coming straight out of Israel's heartland. Please make sure to fill out our survey telling us what you want to get from us in this coming year. Link in the description below. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit notifications, and get in the conversation that's always happening in the comments down below. Tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening right here in the land of Israel. We'll be back next week here at The Israel Guys. Hi guys, thanks so much for watching. Two quick things before you go. One, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any more of our content. Secondly, if you want to help us produce more stories and authentic truth straight from Israel's heartland, you can do so at patreon.com/theisraelguys or at our very own website. It's theisraelguys.com. Both links are in the description below.